Hey, Madhog, have you seen any?
Yes.
Have you seen any good films?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm gonna
Ask
ask
me.
you a question now. Huh?
Yes, please do.
Yes. This question is a very surprising question. You will not know is coming. So, Madhog, have you
Yes.
seen any good films lately?
Oh boy, did I?
Oh boy, you did! Why don't you
Oh
talk
yes, I
about
did.
it while I just sit and listen?
Let's talk about the bells of Saint Trinians.
The bells, they ring for the Trinians.
Oh, for whom the bells toil.
Yeah, the bells tolls indeed.
Yes, but let me go back to the year of 1941, which is way before any of us were even born. Amazingly enough, because we're not that old. Let's talk about Saint Trinians, which is a fictional boarding school for girls, and the creation of English cartoonist Ronald Searle. And it was a rather popular cartoon series, cartoon strip that is, produced in that decade, and it later became a series of films made in between the 1950s and the 60s. The 4 films were produced, then another one in the 80s, then it had a reboot in 2007 and a sequel to the reboot some years later. So it was a popular franchise in British culture, and you should know about it, Devar. You are British after all, aren't you?
I'm British, but
Now, the reason you should know about it is because Saint Trinian, he is hardcore. It's really hardcore. I mean, you wouldn't expect much from a British comedy from 1954, like The Bells of Saint Trinians, which is the subject of this podcast, by the way. But, as it turns out, it holds quite well the passing of time, both comedy-wise and structurally-wise, and it's quite grand. That's what I want to say. But before talking about the film's story, that is, we need to understand what exactly Saint Trinian's is as a fictional place, because, oh boy, I mean, we've seen some pretty rotten students and some pretty rotten educational facilities in our days, in many films and many comedies, but none of them, I repeat, none of them holds a candle to the insanity that is Saint Trinian's. Okay, let me use the film itself to describe to you what Saint Trinian's is all about.
yeah.
So there is this scene, this sequence at the beginning of the film in which the new freshmen are aboard the train that's departed for the station in the town in which the St. Trinian's building is located, roughly.
And on your left, kid, you'll see Hogwarts. Too bad you're not going there.
Well, yeah, yes, actually it's too good for those on Hogwarts, because if the St. Trinian's girls would have to go there, they would erase it from the map in Alpha Day. Just by running. Okay.
See.
Okay, so here's how the film cleverly builds up the suspense before the revelation of what the school is actually all about. This is how the film builds up the infamous reputation of St. Trinian's. So we have the train with the freshmen aboard, coming towards the station. The people there, as if sensing the impending arrival of doom in the form of a locomotive, they start running about. Shopkeepers are closing down their businesses. Chickens are running inside their own little chicken houses, and chaos and mayhem. A police officer locks himself inside the cell. He grabs the old-fashioned phone through the cell bars. He phones the superintendent. Yes, the superintendent answers the phone call, and the officer says to him, "Sir, they're back." my God. At
Oh,
this
wow.
point, okay, you can see death appearing on the superintendent's face as he slowly puts the phone back, opens his closet, and brings up his collection of alcoholics.
And then Death is right behind him going, nice day for it, isn't it?
The only thing I was missing at this point. This is all boding so well so far, isn't it?
Oh,
And
yes,
then-
it definitely paints it quite well.
Oh, yes. And then, finally, the bus arrives at St. Trinian's. And then the girls run. The girls start running, exiting from the bus, trampling everything in their path. It's like the birds, but worse.
It's like the gates of hell have opened and
Yes,
full of demons.
And all those demons look like 10-year-old girls. A whole army of those. Because you see, the gist of St. Trinian's is that it's a school for special cases. For
Troubled children.
For troubled children. And trouble doesn't even begin to give you an idea.
In
of
other
what
words, it's
happens.
an understatement of the year.
Oh, yes, and you haven't heard the best part yet.
Oh, so wait, you mean it's the understatement of the entire era of trouble?
Oh, pretty much. I mean, okay. Let me put it this way. The very first scene, the very first opening scene of the film shows the sign to St. Trinian School. And you can hear in the background a machine gun going off. Later on in the film, this is a nice little detail, by the way, that's very rewarding for who can pay attention. You can clearly see scorched bullet marks on the door to the headmistress's office.
That's...
The double doors to the headmistress's office is riddled with scorched bullet marks. I kid you not.
At this point, I think military school wouldn't even hold them.
Oh no. That's what I said already. St. Trinian's is hardcore. Really hardcore. Especially for a 1954's film. I was genuinely surprised at the level of violence that this kind of environment would suggest it was actually happening. And not only that,
It sounds very unapologetic in what it wants to paint.
yes, it's pretty much spoofing and parodying the very concept of a posh old girls boarding school that we are used to peruse from media and from the preemptive gender politics.
Oh yeah,
that
because
are actually associated with this kind of environment.
Oh
So-
yeah, if you had back then and these days, everyone would be painting all girls' schools the nicest place in the world where all the nicey things are happening, like unicorns flying through the air and such.
Well, actually, no. Nowadays, something like St. Trinian's is more typical, but back in the day, it was that idea was still very much there, going with the times, of course. But St. Trinian's takes all that and turns it upside down. Much like the Addams Family turns upside down the very idea of the suburban classic nuclear family stereotype. Except this isn't just going Family Addams, this is going Family Addams on steroids with St. Trinian's.
Oh wow,
Let
St.
me-
Trinian's is taking St. Trinian's.
Let me expand on that statement. The entire school is booby-trapped, okay? With all sorts of pranks, which go from the classic, rather innocent bucket of water upon the doors of the headmistress.
And here I thought you
who-
were gonna say the bucket was full of acid.
And then we go from that to rigged halberd deadly traps.
quite the same class of school, perhaps, Miss Crawley, but there we'll never lay the spectre of juvenile delinquency by cold shouldering it, shall we, Miss Crawley? Oh, careful.
So yes, we go from buckets of water to halberds in a split second.
Well, already I can tell that Wednesday Addams would be very happy there.
I'm pretty sure Wednesday Addams was a student at some point in St. Trinian's. Oh man. Oh, and it gets better because the freshmen are running a alcohol trading racket with a guy named Flesh Harry.
Flash Harry.
Now seriously, the freshmen create alcoholic beverages, gin and vodka, in the chemistry class, and then some of the girls weasels at the window, and this guy, dressed like some sort of rejected gangster model, pops out the bushes and just walks nonchalantly towards the building to get the latest batch of alcohols that he personally brands, and he goes off to the city to sell.
Bessie, you will be careful of that nitroglycerin, won't you, Bessie?
Yes, Miss Pretty.
Don't get me started when the actual plot of the film kicks in. It has to do with horse racing.
Horse racing?
And it is insanely complex for this kind of film. This plot is. Okay, but don't get me started with the hockey game.
Okay, that's two things we don't want to get you started on, so...
That must be our girls, giving a rousing welcome to their opponents.
Okay, the hockey game. Okay, let me just say this. The referee gets knocked out cold 5 seconds into the game.
Wow, that's a new record even for wrestling matches.
It's a massacre. It's okay.
I can just imagine now the referee just looking shaky, like getting the whistle ready.
Oh, the referee was just one of the teachers, one of the new teachers, but more on that later. And then the teacher who accompanied the visiting team tries to become herself the referee and stop the match, and she gets knocked out too. Everybody gets knocked out. It's the most violent game of hockey you'll ever see. Death hockey!
They also might as well be reenacting Braveheart at that point.
Well, they almost demolished the bus with the visiting team on board. This is the kind of environment we are here to enjoy at St. Trinian's. And the teachers are just as delightfully rotten as the students themselves. There is the chemistry teacher who is teaching the kids how to make alcohol. And there is a teacher whom is quite literally a pothead.
Oh gosh.
And then
a tree hugger.
Yes, and best of all, there is this teacher that looks suspiciously like Morticia Addams from the 1960s Addams Family sitcom. And it is quite revealed that her presence at the school is an alternative to prison. To a 5-year sentence prison.
Wow, do you want to go to prison or do you want to go to the most hellish place on earth?
Quite a tough decision, but at least, you know, as a teacher there, she has quite the leeway. Everyone is pretty much laid back. Well, because there is no point to provide discipline.
Madhog, there doesn't sound like there's any rules there, that the back does not even exist for them to lay on.
But best of all is the character of the headmistress,
yeah.
which pretty much counts as the main character here. She's played with quite a versatility by a notorious comedian of the period named Alastair Sim.
Which on the picture is in big letters.
He plays the headmistress, quite literally dressed in drag, which is a tradition in the films of the St. Trinian to have the headmistress played by a guy. Alastair Sim plays both as the headmistress and her twin brother, which also happens to be the villain of the piece. And they have quite a good exchange together, and also in a quite decently made green screen too for the period, I have to say.
Okay, so he's arguing himself.
Basically, but with two different tones of voices and two different performances, and it really shows and provides justice to the versatility that this comedian really has as an actor. He's really good at this. And really funny too. But really everyone in this film is absolutely hilarious. Everybody fits their role perfectly. Saint Trinian's was pretty much an adult comedy for its time. And it's particularly emphasized by the fact that the main characters are all adults, basically.
Yeah.
The little girls are more like a plot device or a general tool of destruction combined all together.
they're the obstacle of the film.
No, actually, no. The obstacle is the villain. The girls are kind of the good ones, but it's really hard to say, considering all the legal business, underage illegal business they got going on with Flash Harry. Flash Harry is quite the character too. I think he literally lives in the woods around the house, waiting for a signal to come in, and I do mean every kind of signal. At some point he even answered to the signal sent by the headmistress herself. Like I said, everyone is really funny.
Practical things like chemistry prove such a natural outlet, I always think. Oh dear. Poor little Bessie. I warned her to be careful of that nitroglycerine.